Hello, I'm Lisi Barella, VP of SMB Sales, and I'm excited to welcome you to the Mom Project's Blaze Your Own Path workshop series. We tailored these sessions to the topics our team has heard you share interest in to ensure you hear rich and beneficial insights to advance your business. The sessions we cover are all grounded in research published by the Mom Project's Research and Insights Division, Werklabs. And our team is honored to have several of our partners join in these discussions to provide insightful perspectives and practical applications. We hope you enjoy our fourth and final installment and look forward to our ongoing collaboration.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Lisi, for that introduction. I'm Adrian Young with Werklabs for the Research and Insights Division of the Mom Project, and we're so thrilled that you're here today. Today's our fourth and final session, a case study of successful contingent work, and we're going to be walking through a lot of the research intel that we have on this population. We're going to review some of the key research recommendations so that leaders can optimize their contingent work experience. What we share today was uncovered in a Werklabs study called Unlocking Potential of Parents in the Contingent Workforce. And that was done in partnership with SIA, which is the Staffing Industry Analyst. So what we're drawing on are some insights actually from another Werklabs study that we did with Workforce Management Leader Magnet. And that's where we dug in deep to really understand the drivers that impact contingent workers' experience with their employers. We're going to be sharing some of the learnings from the best-in-class contingent work leaders, and then we'll discuss how we can replicate their success. We're also so privileged and delighted to bring a valuable partner and a true living example and the embodiment of successful contingent work to the conversation, Briar Dougherty. Briar is the founder and the CEO of Career Organic, and they partner with professionals that are making career transitions to support every aspect of their job search and their growth and development goals. Briar's been a hiring manager for the past 20 years. She's passionate about cultivating people-centric workplaces. And I think, as I understand it from our conversation, that's what she finds most compelling about contingent work. So Briar, before we dive into the conversation, will you just share a little bit about Career Organic and something maybe the viewers would find surprising about your journey with contingent work or maybe your role as a business owner?
Sure, I'd love to. So with Career Organic, we actually started a scaling project in 2018. And by 2019, really needed to bring on more employees, find a bit more resource in the market. But what I didn't have was a really good recruiting platform. And so I remember the day that I was searching online and found the Mom Project, and this is in 2019. And so they had just launched in the Atlanta market, and that's where I was. And going through their platform, I was looking for a sales associate. We don't call them that. It's a, kind of like a resume coach and someone who can really do consultations for our company as we continue to get more and more phone calls. And so I put a posting out there. It was my very first post with the Mom Project. And I found 3 amazing candidates that I narrowed it down. And each of them had a varied schedule. All 3 of them were moms. And so I found one person who could only work mornings, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I found another person who could work the afternoons, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then the third mom, which was very harmonious here, was Tuesday and Thursday, full day. And so instead of hiring 1 full-time employee, I decided to hire 3 contract employees and really tried that out. And I kind of just threw it at the wall. And I was like, these 3 just really embodied my brand. They had such unique skill sets from their past career, but they didn't have the time to invest full-time work into a company. And so that was how I fell into contingent workforce development. It was not a plan from the start. And so from there, we've continued to scale the organization. At any time throughout, 2019 to now, we've had between 16 and 30 people working on our workforce. So we're a small business, and about 90% of them are contingent workers.
I mean, your agility to be able to adapt and suit the needs of that talent is just a huge testament. That is how we match up well with the talent need, determines how fulfilled they feel in the role. And what you accommodated there is what we hear again and again in the research, which is 71% of moms that are drawn to project-based work are drawn to it because of the opportunity for flexible work arrangements, which you again just accommodated. So what's conducive to their reality, being able to caregive for their family, is why they enter the idea of contingent work in the first place. And we have a huge percentage, again, over 70% of moms with kids under 18 are currently working or looking for work. So the idea that we expand our approach to be more supportive of caregivers is a central element in having a successful contingent workforce experience. So I'm really delighted to hear that you tried that in kind of a really rich way out of the gate with 3 separate employees. How did that work out for you?
It was amazing. They actually, the fun part was, one, I was getting talent from different industries, right? So I had these 3 amazing women who had all different aspects of their career. Some were kind of earlier on. Another one had been working for about 15 to 18 years already, and different aged children, right? So some of them were in school, some of them were still in diapers. And so the need for them to be at home, have a room, and I'm fully remote. My company runs a fully remote ship. And so that just afforded this amazing talent an opportunity to shine within the doors of Career Organic. But on top of that, the camaraderie that came of that, just it created such an amazing culture. And we have that to date. And I know I would love to, dive further into that. But what it really did for us from a growth perspective is it allowed them first to feel heard. They weren't having to struggle between, work and family life. They felt heard from that perspective, but also they felt valued because they had a cumulative skill set that they were bringing to the table that wasn't gone because they were a parent. It actually, it increased their value because they had this cumulative corporate experience, but then they also were a parent, and they're resourceful and thrifty and compassionate and filled with empathy that I hadn't seen in the market, just kind of cold calling on candidates with other recruitment platforms. And that was the game changer for my company, is finding both that amazing talent skill set, right? Like the technical skill set married with the persona of a parent. It was game changing for us.
I'm so glad to hear you say it that way, because when we have conversations a lot of times with stakeholders or those in leadership, it's often couched in this idea, well, we can't accommodate the specific needs that these parents and caregivers have. Well, we can't make the concessions, and we need the oversight, right? We need to be able to kind of serve as watchdogs and know when our employees are contributing. But the experiences you have are also pervasive in the data, right? This is an additive contributor to your organization. And what we're doing is not making an accommodation. We are instead aligning with the reality of current modern working parents.
100%.
And we're able to do that, both sides thrive. It's beneficial to the employee experience in that, just like you're saying, you're drawing on a rich pool of talent that otherwise is getting overlooked, who want to contribute, who've built up these reserves of wonderful, rich additive qualities because of their caregiving role that get to be brought into your culture. So it's good for moms, yes, and it's good for parents. It's also really incredibly good for business. Do you mind if we now look at some of the practices that came up? So that study that we did was really central on understanding the perspective from the contingent talent themselves. We wanted to know and hear, what is it that allows sentiments of career optimism and satisfaction in the workforce whenever you're in a contingent role? And we asked, a few thousand contingent workers to share with us what it is that are drivers around the idea that I feel optimistic in this role, that it was a positive experience, so that, just as you covered, Briar, they can contribute in the way that they want to meaningfully. And what we see here on this chart is really that it drills down to what matters most to contingent workers falls into three buckets. It's opportunity, empathy, and flexibility. Opportunity looks like, equal pay and responsibility, access to upskilling, kind of being treated as though they were this, at parity with other hires within the organization and not an, adjacent separate entity. And then ways to avoid scope creep, where we're really being respectful of the capacity of their hours. You talked about those 3 moms that you hired. They all had very distinct, different availability. Are we being respectful for that? Are we acknowledging and honoring that they disclose that up front? Things like that. And then when it comes to empathy, and as you just said, this is a high empathy workforce. This is a high empathy talent base. So the reciprocity in that empathy is tremendously beneficial. So that looks like, is there a culture of care for the whole person? Are we also looking at our talent teams and employees as individuals outside of the office too? And especially when it comes to caregivers, there are priorities in their life that often need to take precedence, again, even just functionally. And then is there inclusive support like ERGs? Is that available to all hires, including contingent workers? And then the cornerstone, which you've already spoken on brilliantly, but continues to be a theme among all the Mom Project talent, is flexibility. Can I be in a role that allows me to accommodate the needs of my family so that I can contribute the way that I want? So, Briar, could you share any sentiments on these practices about the contingent talent experiences and what matters to them in your capacity to attract and retain them? Or maybe
Absolutely. I can dive into a little bit of so our business practice is that anybody that's working on our team, I don't care how they're paid or what their contract looks like, whether they're W-2, 1099, they're just a contract worker that's coming in for 3 months. We have all of those dynamics here. No one should know who is what. So my team does not know who the W-2 is, who the 1099 is, or who's on the 3-month contract that might be renewed at the end of that. And I think that's really important to everybody because it sets the level playing field. We're not pointing fingers, well, this person gets this type of benefit or this person gets a W-2, so they're valued more. No one knows. And it's not that we don't want transparency because it's a core value of our organization, but it's not important. What's important is that there is equal pay across all roles. So I really don't care where you are in your contract. You're going to get the value that you're bringing and the value that we can afford, right? And so that's off the table immediately. Responsibilities and opportunity. I do see when we are hiring contingent workforce and workers and associates, that the big ask is always, is there going to be a growth opportunity for me? And so there's a stigma, I think, on the candidate end, and this does need to be provided by more organizations in saying, yes, there's definitely going to be growth opportunity, and having that, not just succession planning, but also that growth opportunity and trajectory. Because I think what's missing, even from a W-2 perspective in the market, is that no one knows what comes next. So when I achieve these goals and I'm contributing and I'm like drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm all in, what happens next? And so it should not be just certain team members that get that transparency. It should be across the board. And I see that impacts their motivation, their communication, their want and desire to escalate opportunity. So if there's a process issue, if there's a better way to do something, everyone on our team knows the expectation is for them to voice it. And the more we see that, the more opportunity we can bring them into. And so I think that the empathy and the flexibility are typically secondary in the conversation. And so I think the flexibility is 100% needed. And if that's not available, then a lot of people just aren't in the market for a role. But I think that the first thing I get asked when someone joins the team is, what is going to be this opportunity? So I just wanted to voice that. But from a flexibility perspective, I love that my team lives all over the world. So we actually have people in Europe and further, as well as all the way to California. And so the fun part is, I have a West Coast manager who was hired through the Mom Project, who works part-time. And she works a little later than most of the team because, one, she's 3 hours behind our East Coast associates. But two, some nights, it's, hey, I've got my homeschool project on Thursdays. And like, I know all of this for our entire team is like, oh, that day she's going to be on a little later. So there's also a business opportunity that I've seen come from providing this level of flexibility that we wouldn't have otherwise. And then the empathy, a lot of people throw that word around really willy-nilly. And I want to say that very specifically because if organizations really want to be empathetic, they have to be amazing listeners and they have to champion a voice for every single person on the team. And I think that's at the heart of what empathy really means, is understanding other people have a voice and perspective and that it has value. And I think everything else after that really starts to align and come together. So I do agree. All three of these things are on the table, but I would order them as opportunity being first and foremost. They want to know there's a next step after this. The flexibility is just inherent in the role that they're looking for. And then empathy is once they're in that culture, there's an expectation of being heard.
Well, I just want to applaud. And now I'm a super fan. I knew I would be. I've heard your perspective on how to structure a workforce and how to cater to, again, human-centric qualities. And that's one of the fundamentals of Werklabs approach as well. Our methodology starts with one-on-one interviews for the very reason you just said, because empathy comes from having an acute understanding of the true experience of the individuals in your charge. And in this case, as it relates to the population you're hoping to serve, recruit, retain, which is contingent workers. So we begin that way so that everything we're doing, evaluating, and now showing quantitative outcomes around and building predictive models around that show the consequence on the business for this experience comes from the voice of the talent we're referring to. So they narrate these experiences and share, again, what's important and motivating and compelling to them. And then we're able to demonstrate how that's, again, impactful to the business. And the answer is that it is. So let's look at some of these outcomes here. But I also want to touch on what you said about sequencing and ordering those three buckets, because I couldn't agree more. What's ended up happening over the past few years is we gauge and evaluate, again, drivers for moms, caregivers, and women in work, and certainly not alienating advocates and allies, but our data heavily skews those that identify as mom, probably because we're the Mom Project. But anyways, what's ended up happening is flexibility is table stakes, right? Like you said, it's not the thing that's really moving the needle for the business productivity, but it is table stakes for being able to attract talent in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then once that's there, just as you said, the first thing we hear from respondents is more about what's the opportunity here, because they want to contribute, they want to dig in, they want to be invested in an organization. And just like you're experiencing, the more integral they are to the organization or to your business, the more benefit you get from that distinct perspective that they're bringing. If they are part and central to the business, then they are thinking about the business, not just thinking about the task in front of them. So thank you for illuminating that. And on the other side of it, when we get to outcomes, we can see this chart right here. This is really about, we are identifying organizations that are leaders based on the fact that they have incorporated some of the practices that we learned from the study around contingent workers into their business. If they're adhering to at least one of some of those core practices in their business, they're being classified as leaders. Now, in reality, it was more like 3.7. The statisticians on my team will appreciate that. 3.7 practices have been incorporated into their organization, and that gets grouped as leaders. And then the followers are those that have not incorporated some of the practices that contingent workforce find meaningful. And then the outcomes we see as a result of that are the leaders outperform in terms of business impact on every single measure. So how that looks from a dollars and cents, if we're looking at the economics, is 25% higher ROI. So literally dollar for dollar, the output is greater for those leaders that are adhering to the talent needs, to the talent, what's meaningful to the talent. And then higher perceptions around the experience of contingent workers in their workforce. The redeployment, like we talked about, what happens after that contract's done? Is there consideration for that? Is that part of the practice that we're following? We're kind of considering trajectory. And then the access that they get to highly skilled contingent workforce. That's not surprising as well. When we structure and design programs really centered on the population we're hoping to recruit, we have a higher rate of being able to recruit them. That feels, pretty poignant. So I think we're just really fortunate to have you bringing us some examples. Can you talk about, from this list on outcomes, what resonates with your experience, either from talking to talent or your own business, or any specific measurable influence that this workforce, you can say, brings to your...
So I'd love to touch on two places, because I think I have a pretty unique perspective in this regard to talent, because, our business serves candidates in the marketplace, right? So we write resumes and cover letters and LinkedIn. We have career coaches and interview prep coaches. And so we're in this on a daily basis from a career organic talent perspective. And so we get to hear all of those pain points of candidates in the market. And I will say that the biggest resonator here was that most people now, after COVID, so post-COVID, having been able to work remotely, being able to have a little bit of flexibility, were really important. But everybody wants a purpose.
Yeah.
So many people that I get to talk to on a weekly basis are saying, I'm reevaluating my entire career because I feel like a drone, or I feel like I am just in the minutia every single day. I'm not fulfilled. I'm bored. I'm resentful, like all of these just negative emotions. And so I hear that like really strongly. And so I would say that with a contingent workforce, I think the big attractor is you have the flexibility, you have the ability to kind of maneuver this talent into your organization if you see that opportunity, but you're also becoming a huge attractor for people that want purpose. Because as soon as you create a contingent workforce based on, empathy, flexibility, opportunity, you are a much more intentional organization just by trying to incorporate this. So I think that that's a level up for any organization to be able to attract talent. And then I would say the redeployment of contracts and work and project work. I see this a lot on my team. And so I typically, just based on my experience since 2019, kind of running this model, is it's good to have a starting point with most of these people coming in. And I think it's a fair, we typically do a 3-month model. And then at that 3-month increment, we readjust whether it's, we're now having them come on board, in a fuller capacity, or we're going to a month to month. We want to make sure that it's both fulfilling for the organization, but ultimately my goal is that it's fulfilling for the talent. And so what I also see here is when we overpromise as an organization and we're not intentional because we're like, oh, they're going to be with us for 12 months or 18 months or 24, whatever that might be, we lose focus very quickly. And so I've found that a shorter increment in the contract, it's stated that this will go to a month to month if all of these parameters are hit and it's a mutually beneficial relationship, that at that 3-month mark, we are going to have a performance review and we will go through all of these steps and the additional growth opportunities. And I find that really beneficial to, one, attract talent, because we do attract a lot of talent. I had a role last year that posted, and within a few weeks, I had almost 1,300 applicants to it on the Mom Project. And so we tend to get a very high viewpoint on our roles. But it is also because how we write our agreements and how we spend our time and energy, it's to drive purpose for this particular person and make sure that they're not overextending themselves either. Because what I do find from a mom perspective, and we do employ, I have dads from the Mom Project that I have hired. Thank you very much. So I've had fur baby parents too, which is interesting. So, we're like very inclusive here across any parenthood here. But what I notice is that and this is the fun of it, is that if I give that opportunity and I give that 3-month agreement, then that person, if it's not working for them, they haven't shot themselves in the foot with an organization. We get to have an honest, open, transparent conversation about reality. Where are they? And is there an adjustment on our end that we can make? Or is it just not working and they're not ready to come back and commit those hours, or something has changed in their family? And this does happen. But I love that if you're intentional from the start, it really creates great conversation, and then ultimately talent that ends up staying for a long time and contributes at such a high level.
The fact that you do an assumed roll into a monthly just exactly aligns with what we hear from the desire of the contingent worker, which is a touchstone to say, how's it going? How am I doing? What next? You're creating a wonderful way, especially in a remote environment, to feel tethered to the larger organization and to feel clear on where you are today and where we're going. And again, the reciprocity in that dialogue being so consistent, I imagine has proven highly beneficial for their want and desire and motivation to continue contributing, because there's another monthly check-in where they get to share with you where they're at. So again, the reason why we wanted you to be able to share this perspective with your peers and colleagues and owners is to demonstrate how that could look in real ways. I think you brought up another point that's really important, which is that values alignment and mission and purpose. That has, as you are acknowledging here, really been a movement that we've seen take precedence. I do know, though, that a lot of times those that will be watching this with us, Briar, will be saying, yeah, but what about the practical and the tactical? What are the things specifically? If these are the buckets, let me switch slides here. These are the 3 key buckets or the themes that we see. What's the practical and tactical ways that you can actually integrate some of this stuff? Briar, I think I remember that you have a specific way that you indicate or give cues to your own client base around your contingent workforce. Can you say a little bit about that? Because it's just
absolutely, because it's such a great idea, right? And I don't live in theory like ever. I love ideating, but at the end of any call internally, it's always, what are the action points? So I love this question. So there are very specific things that we've done as an organization to support a contingent workforce, to support flexibility in the workforce, even for our W-2 employees. Okay. So like, again, you would not know the difference between one and the other because everyone has this. When you email someone on my team, their signature actually has a disclaimer at the bottom. And it says that Career Organic, is a proud employer of a flexible work environment, and that these are the hours of operation for that individual. So it says you can best reach me, because of this, you can best reach me between this time and this time, and it gives the days. So if they work Monday through Friday and it's a consistent work schedule of, say, 9 to 3 in the afternoon, that I actually have someone on our team. So she works 9 to 3 and then her kids get off of school and she can pick up her kids and be there for bus and all of that stuff. So her email signature would say, I'm available between 9 and 3. What that's done for us is that if someone emails them or tries to call them outside of those hours, we have an automated message. So like if we have work phones, and so those phones are set to go off and send a note. Hi, you've reached me outside of my working hours. I will get back to you between, and it gives those hours of operation for that individual. And what I've found is that before we had that, I would have someone, and this is what sparked this for me. And I love little failures like this because it always opens up your eyes on how do I make this better and how do I fully support my team and my client, right? Because I'm in it for both. And so the client was very upset about having reached out to someone and getting their voicemail immediately. Okay. And I said, well, I'm very proud of my team and she's not available for you right now. And so that should be the indicator. And I realized that we weren't being proactive communicators and they didn't understand the why behind what we were doing or why are we a flex work environment. And so I felt like that mission, that small little mission statement needed to be on those areas of opportunity for the client to feel like they're supported and they're able to get a hold of people, but also for my team to be able to take that time off. I do not want anybody who works until 3 feeling obligated to come back onto work to check something because they weren't set up for success. And that's how you kill a culture immediately. And then I'll say one more thing is, so tools and opportunity to support your team, you have to have those daily check-in points. And so in Slack for us, we actually have 2 different channels because we have service providers and then we kind of have our ops, sales, marketing function and kind of 2 different groups here. And so we have a team, just a full team update channel. And then we have kind of like our main hub for marketing, ops, and sales. And everybody is required to message when they sign on for the day. And so we get good mornings, we share pictures of like, I live in the mountains. So sometimes I'll share a picture of like my morning and they log in at different times. And so at any time of day, that is a touch point, a human touch point. And so if you're working a remote contingent environment and you are not providing those opportunities for them to feel heard, to feel, as you said, tethered to the business. I loved that expression. I just love that visual. If you don't provide those opportunities, then it's not going to feel organic or authentic for them to be committed and a part of it. And I'm not saying that from an idealist perspective. I'm saying that from a functional, you want the stats of what works. It's creating opportunity for everyone to feel heard, for everyone to have a valuable voice. But that doesn't mean just on a one-on-one basis. That means allowing that team to come together and setting the parameters around that and being the leader that mentors that and models it.
Well, that is a perfect example of something that could be viewed as a small gesture that ended up having a probably transformative impact on not only how your team felt supported, because now we're talking about top-down, system-wide, organization holistically reinforcing, right, the protection of their working hours and time, the prioritization of their life outside of the organization, and it's being demonstrated consistently. And then when you're talking about the Slack channel and the little check-ins like that, what we're hearing, what we're talking about here is greater inclusion, right? For the contingent workforce to feel more included, more integral, and more like they have a sense of belonging in the organization. And what better way to do that than to have the continuity of a daily check, and then pair that with now your monthly check-ins. And I feel like it's really clear why we'd say Career Organic is a leader in the contingent work program space. So thank you for sharing those. I hate to now go to a contrarian position, but I know that for some of the people viewing, they're going to say, well, good for you, Briar. You figured out a wonderful model and you have all of these examples of how it's worked well. And I didn't do that, right? I'm years down the road. I've been resisting this, but maybe I'd like to toe in the water. Is there something that I could do? Would there be a recommendation that you would say, I can attest that this is effective we'd like to start. Maybe we'll have a few contingent hires and see how it goes. What would you recommend as a good starting point to kind of set up or scaffold an environment that could be welcoming and hospitable for what we know contingent workers want?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, you have to understand what your goals are for the business. Every good business owner and manager and supervisor should know that. And then identifying, are there opportunities for talent to come in and like top talent that maybe even from a financial perspective, you might not have 40 hours to give, right? So sometimes that's the integral piece, because I work with a lot of business owners as well and rebuilding business models and things. And what I find is that they're like, I just really need this talent. I need an expert in this space, but I don't have the budget for a 40-hour work week for someone. And so sometimes that is the contingent workforce. That is the opportunity to dip your toe in and and understand that it does have a financial kind of opportunity for the organization while also getting amazing talent. Not to be just all about the Mom Project today, but the platform has been amazing to identify talent that's hungry for that next opportunity that I don't see in the market anywhere else. I don't see applicants, and I've put applications, live applications on LinkedIn, just LinkedIn. We've tried it on our own before. And the Mom Project, the talent that they provide and attract, right? Because they're doing that work and getting their name out there to get that information to a lot of moms and a lot of parents. And it's grown. And I also, for candidates I'm working for, often tell them, get on the Mom Project. If you can't commit to that 40-hour work week, there are opportunities there. There's a lot of contingent opportunities. And so I would say that if you're going to try it, and it could be around areas of opportunity where you don't have the full budget for it, and you just need to see, is this the fit, and have that pipeline of, this is the roadmap I see for this talent fitting, and then see the platform kind of thrive for you and pull that skill set together. And when you're interviewing in the Mom Project, I'm telling you, the hunger and excitement that these parents are bringing to the table, especially ones that either have picked up additional, short-term contracts before, or ones that are just coming straight off of maternity leave. And I've had a lot of those where their confidence might not be fully there during the interview, but when you're talking to them about where they thrive, where they lived before they had a baby, or where they lived before their kids weren't in daycare, or whatever those situations are, you're going to see that there's a ton of amazing opportunity. And through just those 3 first hires, I got to see that if I found multiple people that filled those gaps that I needed, I was creating, 1, a bigger culture, 2, better perspective, because the more people that I could place in similar roles, but in different, areas of the world or different phases of their career or life, it added to people that were already in my culture and in the work environment for Career Organic. So I would dip for those tactical people not knowing where to start. I would be looking at those budget opportunities where you can pull that amazing talent in, and that's going to make a big ROI for you. And then kind of reinvest in that and see what works and what contingent workers could really bring to the table.
Thank you for repping the Mom Project so well, Briar. And I could not echo stronger or louder that you will not be disappointed from this talent population that we have for the very reasons that you're sharing today. And the more we can get aligned with the interests of this group that are big contributors, that are culture adds, that are out producing, more loyal, more tenacious and gritty than their peer hires, as reported by those that have hired with us, the better for the mom experience, and then the better for the organization as well. So, Briar,
can I make one more comment?
Yes, please.
So what's interesting is if you think about those slides and you see, empathy, flexibility, opportunity, they're not talking about, I need a laptop. They're not talking about, I want free coffee. Those are not the perks that parents need or want. It is that they want to feel heard. They want to be a part of an opportunity to grow and feel like their skill set is set back alive, and that they can still have both sides of their life thriving. And so I think that's so much more powerful to see that most companies already have that to give if they're just more intentional about the process to support that.
Oh, thank you. That's the perfect closing and the perfect way to end. And thank you, Briar and Career Organic, for being an equitable progress beacon for elevating better workplaces for moms and parents and caregivers and contingent workers everywhere. On behalf of the Mom Project and Werklabs, the research team, thank you. Thank you for participating and being here, Briar. Thank you all for attending and listening to this session. We're honored to partner with you and have you here today. Lastly, I just was going to ask if there's any closing sentiment, which I guess you just shared it, that you wanted to offer to other business owner peers.
I will say I've referred several businesses as an employer on the platform, and every single one of them, and I'm talking small business to larger businesses, and every single one of them is shocked. That first interview, I always get this feedback is, oh my goodness, like it's a hidden treasure trove. And so I do want to say, I'm not just on the candidate side here and the talent side. I am, I help business owners and find them really good investment opportunities for talent. And this platform has been phenomenal. It has given me a good reputation in providing that as a resource and kind of a recruitment platform. And so I just love that you attract that level of talent with the flexibility and helping organizations have to become more intentional because of it.
I don't think there's a better closing than that. Thank you, Briar. Appreciate your time, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you for joining our final session. You'll receive an email with a summary of the research study we discussed today, as well as a recap of the entire series. We're so excited to create the future of work together with you.